So if you'd like to use the chat button to ask any questions that crop up as I go, if I see them, if I catch them in the corner of my eye, I'll answer you there and then. But those of you who are here now and here live, when I finish doing my demonstration bit, I will take you off mute, or you need to take yourselves off mute, and I can answer any questions that crop up if you want me to go into anything in more detail. So perhaps if you'd like to leave me a yes in the chat box if you're planning to stay later, either to make and create alongside me, or whether you just fancy a bit of company and a bit of chat as you go. So it doesn't matter whether you've got materials with you or not. But I do, I'm just planning ahead as to who's going to stay with me later on. So shall we get started? So we're in week 8 here, and I should just say before we get started proper, that I've had some good news, and that is that my adult education classes here in Kent are starting up again as of next week. The bad news is that they take place on a Tuesday morning. So for the next 3 weeks, week 8, 9 and 10, I'm going to switch this class to a Wednesday. So it'll be Wednesday 12 noon instead of Tuesday 12 noon. So I realise perhaps that might suit some of you better than the Tuesday did, or perhaps that's going to put you off because you already have plans on a Wednesday. You will get the recording of the class afterwards, and of course if you're in my Facebook group Flower Start World, I'm happy there to give you any support you want, and if you want to post photographs or ask questions, so that's the place to do it. So it's good news that we are things are starting to get back to normal. My plan is that I will continue the Zoom classes. So my adult education classes going forward, actually I've swapped the day, so come next September they're going to take place on a Wednesday, in order that we can keep this Tuesday as Zoom's day for us. So if you're still interested, I will still keep rolling out a programme of Zoom flower classes. It's been quite lovely actually. One of the benefits of lockdown is that we have got to know each other in person over the last year or so. So admin out of the way, let's talk about what we did last week. You can see what we did last week for those of you who are watching the recorded video and are picking and choosing and paying as you go. My wreath is holding up. I say wreath, it was a table centrepiece, but my wreath is holding up quite well. You will notice though in strange places, it's like it's not the complete circle anymore. It's got some odd bits coming off to the side. And that's because my freezer have opened, and as they've become fully open, their shape changes a little bit. And if I look at it really closely, I would say that the freezer is really past its best. But from a distance, it doesn't look too bad. And what I've done with my table centrepiece is I've added a ribbon on the top. So actually the last 2 or 3 days, this has been hanging on my front door. So it's given me sort of double time, once as a table centrepiece with my hurricane lamp, and then sort of rejuvenated and used as a wreath for my door. And actually it's really lovely to come home because it's all those hot yellows, vibrant yellows, and with the sunshine we've been having, it sort of gives a real sort of summery feel to the front of my house. So I will put that across to one side, and then just to entice you to sign up for next week if you haven't already signed up. So normally at this point I show you some containers and I give you an idea of what we're going to do, but the main ingredient for next week is going to be bear grass. So if you haven't done so already, you will need to order your bear grass in advance from your florist. You won't find it at street markets. Well, we certainly can't do it at mine. You won't find it at supermarket. You'll have to go into the florist, and you need to be sure that when you order, you tell your florist that you want a full bunch of bear grass. You don't want to be fobbed off with being given, a few strands, 15 strands. We're going to use the whole bunch. And if those of you who have never seen a bunch of bear grass before, it is quite chunky. It's about because it depends how big your wrists are. It's about the size of your wrist. So you'll be coming, ordering something that's got it's a bundle that big. You might get the option of choosing a long bundle or a short bundle. The short is perfectly fine. I've suggested 2 bunches, but if you don't need to, you can do the project with 1, but you won't be able to create as many little placements as we're going to. But I will show you a photograph, and it is in the notes that I've given you for your handouts of what we're doing week by week. this is where the inspiration has come from. So this actually is, I think this is a Dutch language magazine, Summer 2008. So it's quite an old picture, but still quite, you know, a modern look. So can you see, it's not a beargrass bouquet. Those of you who've been to flower class before might have made a braided bouquet. It's the bunch of the grass. It's a bit like spring onions. They're white at the bottom and go green to the top, and they've been cut across the top. And we're going to use beargrass as the mechanic, as the flower frog for standing these posies up. So the posies, these ones here, are actually sitting in a really shallow dish of water. And it's using country style flowers. So I'm hoping that come next week, our gardens will be mature enough, those of you who have gardens, that you can pick. Now, certainly my garden, I would say, is about 3 weeks behind on last year, but I've still got some forget-me-nots. They're getting very straggly now. We've got the native geraniums are coming into season. So I'm thinking those kinds of flowers. So if you're lucky enough to have a, you know, well-stocked garden, maybe you can just go and pick your flowers. But if you are going to buy flowers from your florist, your supermarket, your street market, if you have a choice, and I know you don't always have a choice, it's sort of a bit potluck, see if you can channel your sort of inner country style garden. So this picture here has got cow parsley, veronica, it's grape hyacinths have gone over now. There's some carnations, there's the calendula, the pot marigold, bright orange, there's some chinchirinchi, there's veronicas, there's some roses in the background. So just something, and you know, I've mentioned roses and carnations there. So something you can put together that we're sort of channeling our inner sort of British summertime, you know, sort of going ahead. So as I say, it could be, you will need to spend out a little bit on the beargrass, but hopefully if you've got a garden, you may have minimal spend on the flowers that you'll be using. So I shall put that magazine away. And I will send out the handout for you when I send out the recording for today's class. So you will get that again if you have mislaid it. So you will have that picture to look at. So I'm going to put that magazine to one side. I was tempted to put it on top of my wreath that I've made, but I do want to get that to last a little bit longer. So let's get on with today. So we're going to be making a basket, a very simple basket. So ever so slightly scary. I hope I haven't scared you off too much. And again, it's about buying that specialist materials today. You've got to have something that you can weave with, something that is nice and flexible. So it may be that you're lucky enough that you've got willow growing in your garden or dogwood stems, possibly even weeping willow, but that'll give you, I think it'll give you too much movement really. Silver birch will be too flexible, too insubstantial. So I'm going to be using basket weaving cane. And the reason I've chosen that is because I had already got a pack of basket weaving cane that I bought 2 or 3 years ago. And I know that some of you from the chat we've been having on the Facebook group have found sources of willow. And hopefully you have been soaking them, or if you haven't already soaked them, you will need, probably before you start using them, you will need to soak them probably for a couple of hours, but I'm presuming you will have had instructions on how to soak your willow. And the reason why you soak it is at the moment it's too brittle, and as you try and manipulate your stems, they will break. So they need to be nice and pliable. So I have got off to one side a bucket, which I have emptied of water because I was slightly worried I was going to knock the water over on my kitchen floor. So my stems of cane have been soaking for a few hours, and they now look like this. Now, one of the drawbacks or the problems I've got is because my canes came on a circular bundle, that is the way they want to be. They are going to be a little bit tricky to use. Because they want to spiral round. But if you have bought some straight willow sticks, you probably had harder time soaking them. You may well have had to soak them in your bath, but I think they're going to be more manageable to use because they are in straight lengths. So the technique we're going to be using today is we're going to make a circle first of all, and that will become the base of the flower basket. So it's not a full-blown flower basket. It's just a lightweight in look and structure and robustness, a lightweight technique that gives the impression of a basket, and it's a stepping stone really into you know, the full-on basket weaving tutorial, which I can't offer you, but I'm sure there's loads of courses out there that you can do. So I'm trying to keep everything clean. I'm going to move that away, and I did keep one of these stems longer than the other, so I'm going to start with that over there, and all the other lengths. Now, I wouldn't advise you pre-cut your stems at all. Oops. But because mine were all around and they were getting tangled, I did cut mine about that long, and that's really unhelpful. But you know, what's that? It's just a little bit less than a metre, probably, sort of, you know, shoulder to fingertip length. So I cut mine down a little bit. And the one piece I didn't cut down was my base piece, because I want to create that into a circle. And if you've made a twiggy dories before, you'll recognise this technique. So I'm going to show you this as I face you. I seem to have 3 ends here, so something has gone wrong already. Oh, that's what it is, a spare end there. So this length, mine came really long, and you can see now why I did cut it into lengths. It was just a bit unmanageable. And I haven't cut this one down because I'm not quite sure how much I need to use. So I'll be able to create my little circular base out of one piece of my cane. If you're using the willow that came in standard lengths, you may you may need to add some more stems in. So don't, just because I can make mine in one reel doesn't mean that to put yourself under pressure to make yours under one reel. So I'll talk about that more as I move around. And then the bigger you make your circle, your base, the bigger your basket will be, and the more materials that you will need to complete your basket. So I'm probably going to go for something that's about the size of you know, a small dinner plate, a big side plate, something like that. Something, because I'm going to eventually try and arrange flowers in it, that you know you've got a dish that will fit inside the basket you're going to make. So actually, when I come to arrange flowers, I'm going to use a shallow bowl. So I can't find my little white ceramic bowl, so I used the plastic Oasis bowl, and I put a grid of tape across the top because I thought I would try and get away from using flower foam. So I'm going to make my basket big enough to hold my little shallow dish. You might want to do a little bit of measuring up ahead of time. And then to make the circle at the bottom, you're taking your flexible canes, because you've chosen a flexible material, and then a bit like sewing, I think this might be too long. I'm going to go round twice in my hand to create a circle shape, and it will move because it's a natural material. And then with my other end of my cane, I'm going to sort of sew that in and out. So you will understand now why I cut my lengths in, and I'm getting my arm caught. And you can understand now why you have to soak your materials, because I would never have been able to do that action of the circle and then the weaving round to create the base. I'm going to have to cut this. It's a bit comical. I'm going to cut that down, and I'm just threading in and out. So it's a bit like I'm doing some stitching, taking my needle and pushing that in and out. And that is the action you'll be doing. So say you are using the straight stems of willow and you've run out of stem, what you would do is then move your hand around, add in your second piece and hold it, and then continue round. So that will make more sense as you work. So I'm getting this rounded shape, and it's all a bit damp at the moment. And when it dries out, everything will become a little bit loose. And you can see here, I've got my start point and my end point. And you could trim them off now. I will trim them off. Sometimes I keep them on because I don't like trimming things off until I'm absolutely 100% finished. But I think I'm trying to make this as clear cut for you as possible. So I'll get rid of all my sort of extraneous edges. So I've probably gone round there. I've got I went round 4 rounds, but that was just what felt right for me. So don't go too chunky, but don't go too loose. I went round 4 times. So that is the base for my basket. I'm then going to cut 2 other pieces of willow and have them lying on top of my frame. So to do that bit, I am going to bring in my second camera so you can see over the top what I'm going to do. And this is one of those projects where you may begin to wish that you hadn't started it. But like everything we do, floristry, craft related, you have to power through. So if you think it's going really, really wrong, don't worry about it. I will point out some things that I think you need to look for to understand what you're doing as we go through. And in the event it all collapses and looks horrible, you could just very carefully unravel things and start again. So it's probably one of those things to do when you are rested and ready to go. If you're doing this, you know, watching today and doing it, you know, thinking of doing it at another time in the week, don't do it when you've had a really hard day and you're feeling really tired. Try and do it when you're feeling fresh and sort of up for the challenge of learning a new technique. So I shall bring the camera over, move over my bits and pieces, and then I will show you what the next stage is. I'm also going to get rid of these bits of my scissors. I don't need them at the moment, and I'm just conscious that my bits of willow are going to fly everywhere. So I'm just creating as a clutter-free area as possible to save me getting in a pickle later on. So what I need to do next is to get two pieces of my willow and cut them so they go through the circle and out the other side. And this is where you're going to have the upper hand to me as well if you're using the willow, because you'll have some nice straight lengths. I am at the moment battling with the natural curve. So we'll see how we go. So I'm cutting that down there and then doing one exactly the same size. So I'm ending up with two pieces of the willow, which seems bizarre. I'm just resting them on the top there. And then I take my weaving piece of willow, and these pieces are, I say they are arm's length long. You need to get them long enough because we're creating a sort of basket effect. They need to come out at the base of the basket, up at the side and round at the top. So if you've got some short pieces, they're not going to create this little handle effect, or you'll end up with a very low handle. So again, it's your choice, depending on the materials you've got, whether you want to create a little low handle basket or something that's got a taller grip on it. So what we're doing here is taking the willow, and I'm starting off by putting the willow underneath the ring at the other end, so it comes out here. It then goes over this first stem and under the second one. So the easiest way to make it go under the second one is just lift the second one up and put it there. So can you see, as I lift that off, it's all going to wriggle around a little bit. Bear with me. And then I'm going to come in from the other side and do the same thing. Taking my pointed end, I'm putting it under the rim, so it's come out there, over this one, and then under this one. And what I'm doing, instead of physically weaving underneath, because I've only got two struts, I can just loop it round at the top. So every time I work, I end up with one short stem under the circle that ends up as being a longer stem to create the basket. And I do alternate ones. The short stem there comes up and is left long here. So I'm hoping that's going to make sense. And if you're going to have any difficulty, it's going to be putting these first two pieces in. But when you've got the first two pieces in, everything just is much easier. But you can see here, as I did it, my two uprights didn't stay still and it all got a bit wobbly. But even with two pieces in, it's starting to look much more robust. So I'm working alternatively and alternately, and a long piece, short piece, long piece, short piece, long piece, short piece, and you'll find that pattern, and you'll work out whether you've done it wrong, because you'll end up with two long pieces together or two short pieces. But remembering that we are, you know, this is a handcrafted basket. If you wanted a perfect basket, you would have gone to the shop and bought one. It's the challenge of actually having a go and making something for yourself. So I'm going to whiz around the other side of the camera and come in with my next piece. So I'm coming in short underneath there. It automatically goes over the top, and then I'm looping it round to fit under there. And then my long piece shoots off. I don't know whether I can do it all from this side. So short piece on this side, it straight away goes over the first one and loops it round. So you're thinking less about weaving than just bending it round the second upright. And I think if you can break it down like that, it will make a little bit more sense for you. So here I've got the long stem here, so I'm poking in the short one underneath the rim. Oops. And then under that one there. And I'm working flat on my table. You may find it easiest to work, you know, this between your knees. So short stem underneath the circle, it goes over the first one, and I just loop it round the back of the second one. So you can see it's getting a classic basket weave look. I'm not quite sure whether you'll see from this side. I've used 6 sticks so far. I've got 3 short ones and the 3 long ones here. And you'll see here that because of the way I've started, I kind of started halfway up the basket. So once I've gone as far as I can here, I may well go back and fill in that bit over there. So I've got my long one coming up over the edge. So I come back in with a short one underneath and then loop it round that one there. And the more stems you add in, the more robust it becomes. So that time, that was the short end there. So I need to come in my short end under there and then just flick it round underneath. So I am using these long straight stems, which is going to give me a really sort of clipped and clean outline to my basket. And if you're using the willow, it may be that you've got more branch stems on it. You won't get such a sort of clipped look, but you'll get more interest in the because of the natural look of your stems. So your materials will vary. You know, what materials you've got will vary the look of what you'll end up with. And if you wanted to make things easier, you think about it as 3 sections really. You've got the outside circle and then these 2 uprights. And if you had a different colour of stem, you know, perhaps if you put use the different colours, if you've got a variation in colour, you know, perhaps a couple of browner stems, you could put them across the middle, so you could really understand what you were doing. But if I was trying to draw this for you, I would draw a circle with 2 cross pieces and then show the weaving in between. So I've just got a couple more stems I'm going to put in, and then I will have run out. I need to soak some more, but you can imagine where I was going to go with this. It's under over, and then this one here is going back the other way. So if I had more stems and more time, and I will finish off making and creating this with you afterwards, you could see that here I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 stems. I could probably get perhaps another 10 in up there, and another 10 down there. My circle's quite big. I did it quite big so you could see it. You might want to make yours a little bit smaller. So it's really difficult to say precisely how many stems that you will need. So I'm hoping that that has been reasonably clear for you. So I'm going to bring the camera back to me to show you how I would finish this off. So for the moment, just imagine that I've continued weaving in. You'll never get the whole circle blocked in because of the nature of putting something that's rectangular shaped into a circle, but I could certainly get a few more stems in either side. That would be to fill it out. Of course, you may decide that you want to have quite a loose, open look. So again, it's entirely up to you what you decide to do. So what I'll do is I'll bring the camera back to me, and then I'll show you how I'm going to finish this off. So off to the side, I've got myself a pair of scissors and some string. And then what you do next is you start to build up your handle. So again, it depends whether you've got nice long length, you know, whether you're going to have your handle up here, or if you've got shorter lengths, you might be bringing it down there, or even if you've got long lengths, you might decide to prefer it shorter. So I'm just going to gather these in my hand, so you can see that I've got half of the handle is made on this side of the basket, like so. And try and get them to line up so that it's a nice sort of sweep round, and then coming round the other side like this. Oops, taking them up in order so they don't cross. So if you're using your willow and you've got some really whippy bits of willow, you could bind your handle together using those bits of willow at the top, just by going over and over in the same way that I'm going to use my string. So you could, you know, have a basket that is totally made of willow without any sort of other materials being added in. This one here is a little bit short, and over here like that. So you can see that that's starting to make the bare bones of a basket. And then I would tie that in place. I've got some brown twine here. I'm leaving a long stem here and just binding round to tie it off. And then once you had tied it off, I'm just going to do a little bit. You don't want to watch me binding it off, but it is a choice. At every stage is the choice. Do you want just the really small amount of string just to hold it in place, or do you want to carry on binding and give yourself quite a wide section of willow or string to make, to really show it off, make your fixings part of the decorative trim. So that's entirely up to you. So I have just gone about a centimetre, been around 3 or 4 times. I've got my pieces of string there, so I would cut that off, and at this stage I would trim my long pieces of the willow out to get rid of the excess. Now I'm not going to do that at the moment because I want to use this willow to finish off making the basket that I sampled earlier today. So I'll show you what I've done. That was a slightly smaller circle to start with. And can you say there's a sort of slight difference in colour? This is the wet one, this is the dry one. So actually what I'm going to do when we make and create together, I'm going to take this one apart and finish off making this one over there. And you'll see what I mean about it being a simple basket. The more you add in, the more rigid it becomes. You'll see mine's got a bit of a wobble on it today, but that's because I haven't done enough of the width through that circle to make it secure. So you just need to imagine what this will look like with a few more materials. And of course, once it's dried out, it will all become a little bit more rigid and it will hold in place. So that is the basis of what we're going to do today. And really, it's almost like the flower arranging element is the secondary element. So this is where your shallow bowl comes in. So the reason you want a shallow bowl is that this basket doesn't have any size. It's almost like a platter with a handle on the top. So you want something that's going to be watertight, but quite shallow. And ideally, can you see mine's rocking around a little bit? Ideally with a little bit of weight to it. So I think really a small casserole dish or a low breakfast bowl, something that's got a little bit of weight would be better. Obviously when you've got your water in there, it would be heavier, or you may prefer the security of using a piece of flour foam, because as we know, once you soak the flour foam, it will be really heavy and it will hold everything tight and firmly in place. So I'm just going to weight that down with my secateurs float. I'm not going to pour water in live because you can guarantee it as I lift it up, the water's going to go everywhere. But I will do that in the make and create session afterwards. And then the choice of flowers is entirely up to you. So it may be that whether you pick from the garden, you've been to the florist, you've been to the supermarket, it's the same principles that would apply for any flower arrangement. And I will bring my flowers over in a moment. And whether you just want to create a low arrangement in the bottom, or whether you want to get your greenery to echo the shape of the handle. So it may be that you want to really stretch your skills and do a crescent style arrangement coming through. I'm going to keep mine low today, and my main object really is to cover up the plastic. I want you to see the workmanship of my basket, not to notice the ugly plastic green bowl that's been, you know, sitting here at the bottom. So I went to the market store at the weekend and I picked a couple of bunches of Lysianthus actually. Unfortunately, they came with some leather leaves, so I've got a little bit of greenery. I've got my spray carnations, which are left over from last week, so they'll be handy fillers. And then these most gorgeous Lysianthus. There's 2 bunches here, and one is a sort of it was 2 shades of pink probably, but can you see they look like, as if maturing, the pale pink ones look like raspberry ripple ice cream, and the darker ones look very sort of vintage and aged, so they're going to be absolutely perfect here. And sort of country style flowers to go with my country style basket. And when I come to arrange, I always like to put my greenery in first, so I'm chopping that off the main stem. And then, because again, you don't want any of your leaves in water, pinching off the lower leaves. So you end up with, it's almost like writing with a quill or something like that. You've got the clean stem will go in the water, and I would position that into your flower foam or into the grid that you've created. And I'm going to go around the edges and encouraging the leaves to sort of flow over the edge of the container, so that we start to disguise the fact that it is this plastic bowl. You want the flowers and your skills to do the talking, rather than your eye being drawn to the hardware in your arrangement. So I'm just going to do that from the front so you can have a look. Just to build up a little, and trailing it around the bottom and then lifting some of the stems up towards the middle. Usually I like to use 2 or 3 different kinds of greenery just to keep a nice bit of interest, something for your eyes to feast over, and then start to add your flowers. So my flowers are all a similar size. I'm keeping it all very low key. But it may be that you might, you know, think about roses that are slightly larger. You know, you could come in with your Lysianthus or your spray carnations, and then perhaps with a, you know, your gyp, a very small flower, your wax flower afterwards. So once it's the skill level of the basket really, and the flowers this week are secondary. So I will just put those last few stems in, and this is what I'm going to work on. When we make and create together, I'm going to put more weaving into my basket, and then put more effort into doing my little flower arrangement. As I pick that up, I'm trailing my ball of string there. So just that kind of thing. And what I should have said as well, and forgot to say, was as well as trimming out the top ends here to smooth off, and I will take this off, that is the time, forgot to say, is all these loose bits around the edge here. So all the short straight stems, you cut level with the edge of the basket. Can you see the difference there with my sort of raggedy edges there? So you cut those all straight. I'll do those ones here as well. And then the 2 pieces that we were weaving through, again, cutting those level with the outside edge of your container, just to neaten it all off. So that gives you a much neater, more professional finish. And I will be cutting these off, but I want to reuse those stems and complete my weaving. And again, I can cut them all so they just sat nice and round, or it may be that you quite like these tufty bits. You might decide to cut them here and make the sort of overlap a feature. It's entirely up to you. So at every stage, there's a little bit of creativity. You can adapt and change. So on that note, I think we've probably drawn the demonstration to a close for this morning. So I am going to turn off the recording for class at the moment, and then I will go through the ladies that are joining live today, and you can take yourselves off mute individually, and any questions you'd like me to answer, if you've got any questions, that's the time to do it. And of course, if you're staying later on to make and create, we can chat and work together. So I shall say goodbye to everyone who's watching on record and catch up with you next week. And next week it will be Wednesday for the live class. I shall see you then.